I'm joined with Theo Develegas and Konstantinos Zournas here at NamesCon. You guys welcome. It's great to see you again.
Great to see you, Kevin.
How's everything going this year?
Pretty good.
Yeah.
It's been very busy, very well organized, and I've lost my voice a couple times from talking to so many people, but I think it's great to be here and be able to view new faces and old colleagues and just have a great time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you're both Greek. You live in Greece. You live in Florida.
Yeah, I was born in Greece, and
it's the same thing. No, I'm just joking. I don't know. No. I wanted to ask you both. So Theo, you run DomainGang.
That's one of my. This is my publication. It became as a personal blog, but it's actually a, part of what I do.
Right. And so one of the things I like is that you inject a lot of humor into your posts, and sometimes they're maybe not real. So there's satirical posts that you.
Well, it's interesting. It's been going on for more than 70 years now, and the bottom line is this: about 25% of the content is parody, and the rest is real news about the industry. And the difference is that on real news stories, there's a disclaimer, there's a notice at the bottom that says 100% true. So, but yeah, the idea is to present news in a way that is fun, and sometimes pure parody, makes it easier for people to get something which is related to the real news, but it's actually outside of the box and more entertaining than, let's say, a press release.
Right.
I actually think the best part is a few people that don't realize it's fake news, and
fake news, right?
No, sorry, it's the wrong. Yeah, but they write a comment like it was a real story, and I think that's the best part to see what people believe or not.
Well, it's funny because I think people should read more and comprehend more. There's always the disclaimers, in the footer, but at the same time, you can get a lot of traffic from Google on keywords that combine real news stories, and I merge them with domain-related news. So it's something that I do for fun and profit, of course.
It's one of the many things that you're a designer by trade, and And Konstantinos, you run OnlineDomain.com, and that's one of the industry's I would call it like an aggregator in a lot of ways. Like you are sharing, like with domaining.com, it's like the daily kind of news, and you do the same as well. You guys both kind of overlap with your stories, and you have a lot of personal experiences interjected in with your own portfolio and your own investing.
I actually started my blog mainly to complain.
Yeah.
That was the objective. Actually,
I remember hearing of it. Yeah.
To talk about my problems and how my daily experiences with all the registrars,
You want to vent off. You want to just say, okay, this is what bothers me with industry. This is what is wrong. Fix it, people, or it's going to be a disaster.
I wanted to point out all my problems, or offer some tips to the domaining companies.
Right.
They don't always listen.
Sure. Yeah.
Actually, they don't.
Yeah.
But.
So
I think it's useful for a few people.
A lot of people resonate, and on both of your blogs, there's different kind of cross sections, demographics that overlap on each of them, I would say. But you guys are two of the referred to blogs, I would say, that people as a resource or for someone who's new, and everyone we've been talking to when we ask, what would you recommend for someone who's new into the domain space, they say just read everything you can. You guys are on that list for sure. And what else would you recommend to someone who's starting out, like in terms of a resource or a tool, a person, or of course NamesCon and NamePros as resources in terms of NamePros in the forum, NamesCon as a in-person forum, I guess. But what else do you guys, like as far as something that's useful?
The domain industry blogs serve as an output of thoughts and news about the domain industry, and if you go to domaining.com, which is the actual aggregator, it's run by Francois Carillo. He's French, and he's a smart guy. And several years ago, made this RSS feed. So that's where all the blogs are about the industry are being aggregated on. But as far as resources, I would say definitely it's good to read a lot, and there's some pretty good books on available on bookstores online, Amazon, Barnes and Noble. If you want to interact with people, if you, let's say, become a member of forums such as NamePros, then you the benefit is that you can stay on the sidelines and read. You don't have to participate, and then eventually you break out of your shell and ask people. I think the conference is great for domain investors who want to get more serious and expand their connections. It might not be the best thing for a pure newbie in the domain industry.
Yeah.
Perhaps because there's a certain amount of expenses, travel expenses.
That's right. Yeah.
But I would definitely recommend it to anyone who considers making domain investing at least 50% of their business.
Yeah.
I also recommend to people entering the industry to read everything.
Yeah.
And even go back a few years back to see how the industry has evolved over the years. Yeah, I found an article from 10 years ago that was talking about .org domain names, and it's still relevant.
Sure.
Then my advice is to start slow and to start with what they know, what maybe their hobbies, and start buying domain names really slow.
Yeah, that's been advice I've heard from when I started, is focus on that niche, because if you buy domains about carpet and you have no interest in carpet, it's probably not going to work out for you.
If you're a lawyer, you should buy domain names related to law.
Right, right. What's a niche that you guys personally, individually, gravitate towards?
Mine is, it's a trade secret, sorry.
Oh, okay, okay.
No, I'm kidding.
All right.
I buy a lot of domain names.
We'll do a premium subscription, so people could pay to find out on.
That'd be awesome. Yeah.
Unlock the answer.
That's a good idea for the coming year.
Yeah. Actually, I'm buying domain names that are related to Greece.
Oh, me too.
Obviously.
Yeah.
But I have a few other niches, like London, for example.
Okay.
I buy geo domains that are specifically for London.
Any interest in like the .London extension now exists, but how are you warming up to the new gTLDs? It's been a few years, but
the .London extension was not really kind to me.
Oh.
I actually tried to buy a few, but I think they were too expensive. But things are changing, so maybe I will buy a few now.
You have thousands of domains, right?
I have,
if you care to share,
8,500.
8,500. That's a full-time gig right there.
Yeah,
managing that. Yeah,
it's really difficult to manage and handle the inquiries.
Right. I like some of the posts you have where you share someone's response to an asking price. That if they try to make either an inquiry or an offer to you, and your response gets sent to them, and then their counter response is something that you share it resonates with a lot of readers usually, because it's it's like a universal.
Yeah, a lot of people are getting similar responses, or the usual people that are actually lying their way to a better price.
Yeah,
a lot of people making offers on domains. They tried obviously to get them for a piece of bread, as we say, but the whole idea is to treat each inquiry as a prospective maximum sale. So therefore, you have to ask for your maximum amount of money, how you value the domain, and what you're expecting out of it. Personally, I'm a little more conservative about my acquisitions. I have about 2,000 domains over the years, and the focus is keywords, usually two-word.com, two-word-compound.coms or dictionary words. I'm done with my proverbial Chinese chips. These have been sold at the really good timing. Consider myself lucky in that respect. And I have a small portfolio of new gTLDs, probably 300 these days.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's quite a lot, actually.
Yeah.
How have you been faring with them so far? In terms of like how you've gotten started with them and how you've amassed that collection versus how many you've let go of, the extensions you've chosen over the ones you've decided not,
For
not
the
to
new
keep.
gTLDs?
Yeah.
No, these were conscious acquisitions from the get-go. Obviously, we have 1,200 new gTLDs so far that went live. Not all of them were released at the same time. So, you have to follow a little bit the schedule of what's coming up. And from the first round, I chose a few that were related to technology, photography, media, things that you can form useful, like the first part, which is the keyword, plus what's after the dot, should form something like that makes sense.
Kind of like some people call it a domain hack. More with ccTLDs, but I think sometimes some people count the right of the dot as the word, meaning a phrase as a hack. I don't know. Maybe it's a better word for it.
The domain hack is basing itself primarily on the ccTLD, but with the new gTLDs, keyword plus gTLD making a phrase or a valued keyword.
There's probably another term for that, but that's what I'm referring to. I don't know. We can make one up.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't think of anything right now.
So nothing has changed since last year about what I've been focusing on. I think in the coming years, interest is going to expand much faster as long as the registries who own these strings put some more effort into the promotion. And as they said in one of these sessions, you have all you need is a big player such as Amazon or Microsoft to take ownership of one of these brands and expand spread the news that, hey guys, this it's not just .com. So I'm thinking that eventually in the coming years things we'll be treating gTLDs like everything else.
Interesting. So you guys deal with a tremendous amount of inbound inquiries. We probably won't be able to figure this out now. I'm curious if having 4 times as many domains means you get. It's to each his own. It depends on what kind of inventory you have, what kind of people are finding it, and what have you. But for all intents and purposes, let's say you guys have hundreds a month that you're getting. What are some tactics? You said you throw the highest price out first. That's one tactic, or maybe explain it better.
I think that the volume isn't always indicative of. You might as well have
quality.
Yeah, exactly. You might have some really good domains that get the bulk of the inquiries, or you might have you might be lucky and have a vertical that attracts a lot of inquiries and offers. So in terms of strategy, research your buyers because they disclose a little bit of information about themselves, even though not everybody does that. For obvious reasons, a lot of these inquiries come with less data that you can use. But the concept again is that you treat your assets, you value your assets, and you know that the bare minimum you want to get is this much. And unless you engage in a counter offer position, then you shouldn't back off from that line.
Right.
So research your buyer, value your domain, and negotiate, and be nice, be polite. You shouldn't burn your bridges, I think.
Yeah, that's what I do as well. I try to research the buyer as much as I can. I'm using different tools. Sometimes I even reply and say that the domain is not for sale. That's something I do lately, and sometimes it actually works. And
that's a really interesting tactic, actually. So it seems like to them that it's so scarce and it's unattainable.
Yeah.
People want what they can't have, and then they come back and they go.
It seems like I'm
I'll give you 10
indifferent.
grand for it, yeah.
I don't care if I sell it or not.
Yeah. That's good. So
and I actually I'm trying to get a reply from them, because sometimes they will reply from a different email address.
Okay.
From the one that they actually used in the inquiry.
Okay.
And that will reveal some more details.
Interesting. Yeah. I like that. Yeah.
That's a typical example of showing you how you might leave money on the table if you don't consider these little possibilities of people using an alternate email address, and then when they get back to you, you see their signature being different from a different email address, revealing that they're a company.
Or it's like another person even. It could be an associate or colleague or something.
Yeah. I also tend not to respond right away, because that gives them time to get nervous for some reason. They can go back and make an offer, for example, or they will say things like, can I get a price? Come on. So take your time, research your buyer, and anything is possible from that point onwards.
There's one tool that I know a lot of people use. Ed here at NamePros and I both were talking about it earlier. I'm sure a lot of people in this room have heard about it, and for those watching, and I'm sure you guys have heard about it too, it's called Rapportive. It's a plugin, browser plugin. I use it on Chrome, for instance. I think it's on Firefox as well. I think LinkedIn bought it, but what it is if you need a LinkedIn account for it to really work properly, I think. But if I just type in what I think your email address might be, I can gauge who you are, I can sort of guess your email. If I know who you are but I don't know your email address, I can type in a combination Theo dot blah blah blah, etc. Right. And you hover the cursor over, and if there's a match, it pops up on the right pane of the screen, and it tells you if that person is who you think it might be. So when someone's sending an offer inbound to you, you can kind of hover over that and find out if they're a CEO of the vertical, for instance, that the domain is. Are there any other, how else do you guys find, do you just Google an email address? How else do you guys find out more about that person? Obviously, if it's at Gmail, it's going to be harder to figure out who they are versus if it's at a domain of a company, for instance. But how do you guys sleuth, how do you
I Google the name. I try to search the LinkedIn. If they're using a domain name, I try to who is the domain name, and then see if they own any similar domain names, or
that's
using
a tactic.
Yeah. It's the easiest way to at least begin your search, and then of course you can use some other tools. For example, zfbot.com, which gives you the chance to find substrings of existing domains. So let's say you get an email from or let's say you have example.com, and you put that string in, and you can find example123 or example-ventures.com that might be your potential buyers. So this works also for outbound sales, but the more creative or rare the domain they inquire about is, the more chances you stand with a tool like that to find alternate domains that are new ventures or existing companies, and try to at least have a starting point about instead of guessing who they might be. One more tip I have is for, let's say you have an inquiry from Holland, the Netherlands. you should try to go to the local version of Google, like type google.nl, which gives you local results first for these domains you might want to research. So this has given me extremely valuable intel on the, based on the mere fact that I changed from google.com to google.nl, and then my search results turned up Dutch companies with the same, domain that I have as .com.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just say I will not reply to anonymous inquiries.
Yeah.
Use a real email address and get back to me.
So you really put your foot down. And I'm sure, and I've seen you write about this as well, and I know you as well too. People who just don't have any idea what a domain might be worth. They think they can get it for $5, $10, or maybe $100 if it's, could be $20,000 domain. What's been your process like in terms of interacting with these? Let's assume for a minute that they're outside of this industry and they have absolutely no clue what the value of this digital property is worth. But how do you go about interacting with them? And if you decide to try to educate them, what do you tell them, like about the industry and about what a domain is worth in general?
I just point them to a few domain name blogs and the forums, and even dnjournal.com, so they can see the top sales of each year.
Right.
I'm not trying to really engage in a conversation because probably it will take me nowhere.
Yeah, there's a certain time of, time is money, right? So if you have a few dozens per day and half of them are, you should treat each inquiry as having being a prospective sale. Now, in terms of education, I think this thing occurs throughout the negotiation, more or less, that they offer, let's say they offer $1,000 and then you're looking to sell in the five-figure range. So then they might question why you're asking for $10,000 when, let's say, you paid $100 over the course of 10 years to maintain this domain. So that's where you need to step in and explain that what determines the value of a domain isn't the sum of the renewal fees.
Yeah.
So it might have to do with so you might have to explain to them that it might be a generic term. You might be holding onto a clean, nice brandable, or you might need to explain to them that the fair market value follows kind of different rules. It's, but at the same time, these inquiries have one goal in mind, which is to buy your domain cheap.
Yeah.
They cannot register it. You own it. It's your asset, and assuming it's clean from any kind of trademark and whatnot, then you should be able to set the price, negotiate, and be able to complete the sale.
Sometimes I'm trying to explain to them that I paid a lot of money to buy a certain domain name, and they will just don't understand it. As I'm saying I paid 5 figures, I will not sell it for 100.
Right.
And they simply don't understand why I paid that much.
Do you both meet people in your lives? Not forget the negotiation side of this for a second, but just people in general, cocktail parties, or I don't know, on a walk in the woods or something. I'm making this up, but wherever you meet people,
Sure.
And they ask what you do, and you tell them about the domain industry. What do you tell them? Someone who's never even heard of it or understands it. What do you say? Or do you make something funny up that's totally unrelated or something?
Actually, I have a few Facebook friends that think my Facebook account has been hacked because I post my stories on Facebook, and they really don't understand anything.
Yeah.
And they seem to think that something fishy is going on.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I'm just trying to explain them that it's really simple. I buy and sell domain names. that simple. I
Yeah.
buy low and sell high.
Yeah.
Just like what you do with other things.
Yeah, exactly.
Almost everything,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah,
And I also do web development work. So I'm trying to explain them that how you can use a domain name to create a business or create a blog or pretty much everything.
Yeah, for example, my parents know what domains are and what I do. My dad actually got involved in computers before I did, and that's very interesting to think about because we're talking about the late 70s. But there was a fun thread on NamePros a few weeks ago which said, "Okay, guys, help me out. I'm single again, and the girls I date, I need to let them know what I do, and they seem to be, baffled by how do I explain what a domainer does?" So this thing got viral because the guy had gotten out of a long relationship, and he said, for as long as I've been with this woman before is when I started as a domainer. So I didn't have to explain it to anyone else what I do now. So there were a lot of fun responses, and the truth is you can say you invest in digital assets like brands, or you build identities, or you flat out explain that domain names are who you are on the internet, and they're yours. You can register them, or you can buy them, or you can sell them.
yeah.
It's a very simple answer. But at the same time, domain investors wear multiple hats. So, like Konstantinos said, a lot of people are developers, or they have other investments that they're in marketing, or they're technology professionals. So I think these days, especially having large registers like GoDaddy, everybody knows what domains are. So you have to pretty much explain the fact that you can trade them. You can buy them, develop them, and sell them.
That's the tricky thing.
And what their value is. That's the main problem.
That's very hard to. That's very hard to. Yeah, the subjectivity of it is hard to probably describe to someone who's new. My girlfriend still doesn't understand, and I don't think she really cares, actually, to be honest. But it is really interesting to see. I remember like that. I don't know if you guys have experienced this in just meeting friends in general, let alone a love interest. It's very rare when someone really is like, "Oh yeah, that's really cool. I understand that." Usually, it's that kind of like, kind of back away.
Well, that's why we're hanging out
at
NamesCon here, so that everybody knows.
Yeah,
and actually,
exactly.
Some people don't even know what the renewals are. I think that you buy a domain name, you can keep it forever without paying any renewal fees. And when I explain them that I have 8,500, they do the math, and that scares them a little bit.
Yeah,
I have to pay 100K in renewals every year.
Right.
I have a fun story when one deal a few years ago went south because the guy agreed to buy the domain. It was through Sido, and then after the agreement was ongoing on Sido, he sent me a footnote saying, "So I'm buying this domain forever, right?" I had to be honest. I said, "No, you're paying this much for this time to buy it from me, and then each year you have to renew it." And he was like, "No, thanks." So I had pushed the domain to his account, and I remember being so nervous. I rushed, pulled it back, told Sido that the deal is off, and it never completed. But he had assumed that you buy the domain and you're done.
But that's interesting. So may I ask how much the sale was for?
It was a little over 1,000.
Okay, but it would cost him really no more than 10% of that to hold it for 12 years.
Exactly.
So that's such a short-sighted mentality, in my opinion. But that's really interesting. People still aren't quite up to speed with the long-term.
I think benefits. Also has to do with one person's overall budget, and they were from Central America, and I'm just saying that maybe they had fully stretched their finances.
That's right. That makes sense too.
But
that makes sense too,
you're right. If you invest a small chunk into getting this domain on the secondary, on the aftermarket, I mean, come on, you get domains for $9. I mean, the renewal for the average.com.
Sure.
So this is just an indication of how there's definitely a lack of information, mainstream information about domain names.
Yeah.
So, it's part of what we do to cover all the bases and say, okay, you're buying this domain from me, it's going to cost you this much, I'm transferring ownership, and then it's all yours. You have to pay the renewal fees every year. You better do that or you're going to lose it, etc. So I kind of go the extra mile if there is a indication that this person is not as knowledgeable. But I think that was the past. These days, things seem to be more straightforward.
I have actually donated a few domain names to charity. And when I do that, I tell them, please renew the domain name.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, you will lose it.
Right.
And somebody else will have it.
Yeah.
So please, I'm giving it to you for free, but please renew it every year.
You could end up with it again. You wouldn't tell them that, but yeah, I mean, theoretically, it could happen. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a sad story. I remember about, I think, 9-10 years ago, I sold a domain to the Greek tourist office. It wasn't too expensive. It was for 2,000. They actually during the negotiation, they were seeking some sort of formal paper that is requested by when you trade things in Greece, which is the VAT,
right?
Which I couldn't provide, and I said, look, the invoice comes from escrow.com. So we went past that part, and 3 years later, that domain which they use for tourism campaigns in Greece, it expired and was picked up by one of the, I think it was Huge Domains, but I'm not sure. So that's a shame for, it's an example of how you can lose your assets if you don't keep track of them. And if you're dealing with a government, organization, it could be more bureaucratic and doesn't make me feel happy because I want each domain that I sell to become a useful website.
Do you guys have tactics for renewing your portfolio, or do you set everything to the same date so that you can just do it once and not have to worry the rest of the year? Or do you have to kind of go in on a well, maybe not daily, but weekly or monthly basis?
I actually review my domain names every couple of months.
Okay.
And do the renewals, and I go through my list one by one.
Yeah.
And decide which one I renew.
I like your posts when you describe what you keep and what you get rid of, and percentages.
I haven't
and stuff.
done that for a while.
It's good. Let's bring it back.
We'll probably do it again.
Yeah.
Well, supposing that you've done the what I want to call weed and feed, which means you go through you comb through your entire portfolio and say, okay, that was a mistake. Out. This was not so good, maybe. But in terms of renewal flow, sometimes I let domains go past the expiration date. There's a reason for that. You get a lot of inquiries coming through. It's not the safest method, and I don't recommend it if let's say if you go on vacation you're going to be gone for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Don't do this kind of thing because maybe you will forget.
It's happened to me recently, actually. Yeah.
But these days,
you can miss it, but just a week late.
Oh no.
It can be you can miss them.
So at some point, you renew in bulk those domains that valuable. I would say the core domains of your business, renew them for several years in advance. Like max it out 10 years if you can.
Yeah. It's a good tactic.
So for regular renewals, make sure you confirm that they have been renewed because sometimes the registrar fails to do so. It might be rare, but on occasion you will, feel secure that everything was paid for because you paid for the renewal, but something went wrong in the connection transaction between the registrar and the registry, and you just want to make sure that these domains you renewed get the new expiration date.
Right.
Yeah, I don't really use auto renewal.
You don't use auto
renewals?
Yeah.
I try to renew the important domain names for maybe 10 years.
Yeah.
That's the max.
Right.
And like my blog's domain name expires in 5-6 years.
Right.
So
that's probably good.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I want to thank you guys for your time, for being here, and it's great to see you both again. I hope
Thanks, Kevin.
hope we can see you before the next NamesCon, maybe in Domain in Europe, in just a few months.
Are you coming?
Thinking about it. I'm gonna try to get over there.
Make sure your passport.
I might have
is in
to
order.
sail over, but it's a little bit more.
Start now.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but it was great to see you guys. Thanks for
been
being
a
here.
pleasure.
with us.
Seeing you.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you.